Hey guys, Sean aka Shawnee007 here, looking at my new Steinhart 39 Ocean 1 GMT in red and blue color configuration for the bezel insert. This one does have an aluminum bezel, and today I want to do two things. One, I want to look at the watch standalone and talk about what I think about it, and then I would like to compare it to my Ginault. I know it's a little overdone. I compare all my watches to my Ginault, but there's kind of a reason behind this for this review. The Steinhart has gotten a lot of attention lately, and a lot of people have been asking how it compares to my Ginault. They've also been wondering how it wears compared to my Ginault, so I want to address those things today. But first, let's look at the Steinhart just as a standalone watch without comparing it to anything else. So this watch has just really exceeded my expectations as far as what I was expecting for bang for buck. I did a little rant on Instagram yesterday just talking about how incredible I think the value is for one of these watches. Before I get too further into this, this is not a OEM Steinhart bracelet. This is a bracelet from Strapsco that has solid links. The Jubilee has solid links, but hollow end links. I went with the hollow end links instead of solid end links, so that way I could bend them in a little bit and get them flush to the case as best I could. As you can see, it's not perfect, but if you look at it head on, you know, the end links do reach the end of the lugs, but just from the side, because of the angles, the lug tips do pop out a little bit. I really love the way the vintage, I might be butchering this reference number, and you can fix it below or comment below if I am, but I believe it's the 1625 Rolex GMT. In the 1960s, a lot of people were wearing them on Jubilees, and I just really think it's a slick look. And of course, with all the Rolex marketing on their new ceramic GMT and steel on the Jubilee, you know, it just kind of made me want to do it a little bit more. So, you know, I do like the way it turned out, and I like the way it wears. It's really comfortable, as Jubilees usually are. Anyway, back to the watch. So it does have a unidirectional GMT bezel, which I will say I do wish was bidirectional. It has a 2893-2 Etta Elabore. Again, I don't know if I'm butchering that pronunciation. You can go ahead and comment below if I am. Grade movement, it beats at 28,800 beats per hour. Has functioning GMT hand here. So if you pull it out, you know, the first position, this is hand winding. Second position, you know, most people have already kind of beaten this to death in their reviews, but you go up and that moves the GMT hand, or you scroll up and then you scroll down and that moves the date. And then third is the hacking and time setting function. And then the screw down crown, you know, let me address that. It's really solid. There's no wobble at all in any position. And to get it back in is really buttery and really smooth. You know, the bezel action on mine is really quite nice. I have no issues with this bezel action at all. There is a little bit of play, which is okay. Actually, I can't get it to play at all in this position, so. Now it's, I believe, 13 millimeters thick, and man, I should have measured this thing before I started. 39 millimeters from the bezel, 38.5 from the case, and 46.5 lug to lug. Now the thing that I didn't like about Steinhart's when I first tried them a few years ago was they only offered a 42 millimeter case, and the 50 millimeter lug to lug was just way too long for my 17 centimeter or 6 3/4 inch wrist. Now this one I've really found a joy to wear. I think it wears really nice, especially on the Jubilee. It's really comfortable. Let me pull out the stock bracelet because I actually want to talk about that a little bit. Just a second here. So I've got the Steinhart box right over here that I'm pulling the bracelet out of. Let's get that out of view. Okay. So the bracelet is really nice. The end links are in the box with the spring bars, but you know, they're screwed in links. It has a brushed finish. So this thing got test diving scratches the moment I put it on. I literally threw this thing on and went to work, and that happened. But yeah, it has a brushed finish. It has the chamfered polished sides here. It has the polished all on the sides of the bracelet, or the flanks, I guess you'd call them. And the underside's brushed. The clasp is decent. It's not great. And one thing that kind of bugged me about the bracelet is, and I won't be able to show it here because it's not mounted, but the way that the end links play on this this piece of the bracelet where it connects, a lot of times the squared off part would be sticking out, and it kind of bugged me. The other thing I didn't like is, you can't really hear it here, but it would make like a weird noise when I was wearing it. I can't really explain what it sounded like, but it was just like didn't really appeal to me. So I took it off, threw it on the Jubilee, which is a little bit rattly, but it's okay. Now the loom is BGW9 loom. It's white in daylight and glows blue at night. It's fairly strong. It lasts throughout the night. I wake up at 6 in the morning, and I can still tell the time. So it does last. Now, are there things I would change about the watch? Certainly, yeah, I would definitely change a few things. One thing is that I would like the lugs to be tapered down a little bit and not squared off. I think if they kind of came down to an edge instead of squared off, it would be a little bit more appealing. I think the applied indexes, they're not great. They don't look great. And the applied loom is very flat, and it's not very substantial, or it doesn't have like a bubbled look in the middle. It almost looks like it's painted on, and then they just kind of threw like a silver circle around it, if that makes any sense. The Cyclops is decent. The Squale Cyclopses are a lot more powerful, but it does the job. Definitely magnifies the date for easier readability. Again, I would like for the bezel to be bidirectional. The dial color itself is nice. I like the matte finish, and the AR coating is really nice as well. I like that touch. I like how it wears. It definitely wears thinner than 13 millimeters would suggest. I think a lot of it is because this case back will disappear on your wrist, so what you're seeing is basically everything on top of my thumbs. The finish is decent. There's no chamfered edges. It's just a very standard finish with brushed finish on the top and polish on the sides. The crown, it's nicely machined. Feels good. The logo is nicely etched out of the crown. The case back You know, a lot of people say they love it. I'm impartial to it. I don't know. It's okay. It's not as nice as my Christopher Ward. I mean, it's certainly nicer than, you know, just having it blank, but you know, it's okay. Now, I do find this to be an exceptional value for money. For the last, I would say, almost year, I've been looking to get an automatic GMT. It's hard to find one that's Swiss-made, first of all. It's hard to find one that, or let me go back. It's hard to find one that's automatic and Swiss-made under $1,000, because that's usually where my budget lies right now, since I am still a student. But I think for $525 that I paid from Steinhart to get this basically almost overnighted to me, it's just really exceptional value. And I would highly recommend it. Okay, so let's jump into the second part of the review. So here it is side by side with my Ginault. Now, the first thing I noticed is the Ginault's, even though it's an aluminum bezel insert, the paint on it is just really nicely done. Closest thing that I've seen to an OEM Rolex bezel insert, to be honest. It's really nice. It looks almost like a lacquered black. It's really amazing. The dial is enamel, and the loom is comparable to like a C3 loom, as I've mentioned in the past. Now the finishing is where the Ginault's a step ahead, because I mean, let's be honest, the ETA clone that's in this is comparable, if not a little bit inferior, since it's, you know, not tried and true to the ETA 2893-2 Elabore grade that's in the Steinhart. But the case detailing, you know, the bezel action is a lot better, a lot more solid. And this is a little bit tinny feeling. Not as much of a pleasure to use. You know, the crown action is close to a Rolex as I've seen. You know, it pops out and then getting it back in. A little bit of pressure to want to come back out, but that's because of the triple lock O-ring, or maybe, I'm assuming that they're you know, using the triple lock style mechanism to get this closed, because it does feel a lot like the 1140-60 sub C I used to have. This one does have a little bit of play when you get it set, but then once it sets, there's no play at all. You know, the bracelet, so I can just move that here. The bracelet is a lot better detailed on the Ginault. I really like the end links on here, and the clasp, you know, is way further ahead than the Steinhart clasp. But again, this might be a copyright infringement from Ginault, because it does have the glide lock mechanism. Wearability. So let me get some wrist shots in, so that way I can just kind of show you how the different watches wear. So this is the Ocean 39 on my wrist. .45 millimeters lug to lug. Again, 39 millimeters from the bezel across, versus my Ginault, which is a millimeter larger in every direction, except for the thickness is about the same. Ginault might be a little bit thicker because of the domed crystal. I like how both of them wear, to be honest, and I don't think I'm going to sell either of these watches, but yeah, I'd say Ginault, they just win just because of the attention to detail on the finish. In my opinion, when you look at the Ginault, it just, and wear the Ginault, it just feels quality, whereas the Steinhart definitely has a quality look. But once you start kind of handling it and really looking at it on the details, let me see if I can show the difference on the applied markers. So the applied markers on the Ginault are stated to be hand finished and I don't know if they're handmade, but hand finished at least. And there's just a kind of a quality look to it. The Steinhart almost looks tinny to me. Like, they just look a little dull. I don't know. They don't really look great. And I don't know if it's because they're larger, like the polished parts are larger, or if it's because the 3D applied loom on the Ginault versus a flat applied loom on the Steinhart. There could be either one of those things. I couldn't tell you, to be honest. Here they are side by side. Now, I haven't taken the Steinhart off in about a week, and the reason is it not only because I like to wear it, but also because I have the GMT function. It's not set right now, but because I just mess with it. But I have it set to France time, or the whatever time zone France is in, because my brother moved to Toulouse in France, and sometimes I like to text him, I like to call him, or FaceTime him, and sometimes it's like 3, 4 in the morning, and I'm just not aware of what time it is, and this just helps me kind of keep track of that. Also, kind of just makes me think of my brother. This one does too, actually, to be honest. So my brother and I both own this watch. We bought Ginaults at the same time originally, and so every once in a while you'll send me a photo of this watch. He still loves it; it's his favorite watch. So yeah, both of these kind of just remind me of my brother, which is nice. A little sentiment there. Yeah, I mean, I would still highly recommend the Steinhart. I get all the Steinhart love now, and I get why people were telling me, why spend the extra money on a Ginault when you can get a Steinhart. It makes sense. It makes sense to me. I do think Ginault's place in the market is a little bit narrow, in that they make a really nice homage watch. This is the best homage watch you can get, in my opinion, to a Rolex. It's, and as Take Time Pat said in his review of his Ginault, what they're trying to accomplish with getting one of these is the experience of owning a Rolex at a fraction of the cost. And I really think that they nailed it on the head. There's not one thing I would change about this watch. Actually, there's only one thing I would change about this watch, but that just has to do with the movement, and I don't know if there's too much that they can actually do to correct that, but I would prefer if the date functioning stop, the second stop wasn't there, and it went straight from hand winding to time setting. But again, that would take modifying the Edo clone that's in here, and I don't know that they want to take the time to do that. Whereas with this watch, the things I would change on this watch are just kind of, attention to detail and some finishing. But otherwise, I think it's phenomenal value, and I would highly recommend the Steinharts and the Ginaults, to be honest. I think they're both great watches. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in for the last 20 minutes. It's been a longer review on these two, but I wanted to look at the Steinhart individually, and then just kind of bring in the Ginault just to show a little bit of some differences, some comparisons. Since I have had a few questions on Instagram and on the Facebook groups that I am a part of on how they differ. If you have any questions, if I didn't address anything, if you have any comments, any concerns, anything you'd like me to address in a future video, please let me know. I'm totally open to suggestions. I kind of just do this on my free time on my iPhone, so I'm not like a pro reviewer here. Yeah, check me out on Instagram, Shawnee_007. Subscribe if you like my content. Appreciate it. Thanks.